the Scribe of Samarkand. In the 14th century, the city of Samarkand was known across the world. It was not only a center for trade, but also a hub for knowledge, science, and culture. Located along the ancient Silk Road, Samarkand was visited by merchants, travelers, scholars, and rulers from many lands. The city's libraries, observatories, and schools attracted people eager to learn and share ideas. In one corner of the city stood the House of Wisdom, a grand library filled with thousands of manuscripts and scrolls. These books were written in many languages: Arabic, Persian, Greek, Sanskrit, and Latin. They held knowledge of astronomy, medicine, philosophy, mathematics, and history. Some of these books were hundreds of years old, and many were copies of even older works. Among the many people working in this library was a young orphan boy named Ibrahim. He had no family, and he lived in a small room near the servant quarters of the building. He worked as a cleaner. His tasks were simple: sweeping the floors, dusting the bookshelves, lighting lamps at sunset, and fetching water for the scholars. Although he was not allowed to study, Ibrahim loved books. Every day he walked among shelves full of wisdom. While cleaning, he often stopped to listen to scholars reading aloud. He memorized words, even though he did not know what they meant at first. Over time, just by listening, he began to understand more and more. At night, when everyone else had left, Ibrahim would pick up broken pieces of chalk and practice writing letters on discarded slates. Sometimes he copied the shapes he had seen in the books. Sometimes he just repeated words he had heard. It was a slow process, and no one noticed what he was doing. One day, a famous scribe arrived in Samarkand. His name was Al-Tahiri, and he was known for his precise handwriting and knowledge of old texts. He had been invited by the Sultan to copy a rare Greek manuscript that had recently been brought to the library. The manuscript was fragile, and translating it required great skill. Al-Tahiri was one of the few people trusted for such a task. For many weeks, Al-Tahiri worked alone in a quiet room of the library. He wrote carefully, using fine ink and expensive paper. His pen moved slowly, as every letter had to be perfect. The manuscript was not just to be copied, it was to be preserved for future generations. Ibrahim often watched him from a distance. He admired the scribe's focus and the beauty of the pages he created. Though he could not go near, he dreamed of one day writing like that. Unknown to most people, Ibrahim's secret learning continued. One evening, the head librarian, a kind old man named Sheikh Omar, noticed Ibrahim copying letters in a corner. He didn't scold the boy. Instead, he sat beside him and gently corrected his mistakes. From that day forward, Sheikh Omar began teaching Ibrahim in secret during the quiet hours of the night. With practice, Ibrahim's skills grew. He learned how to write clearly, how to read different scripts, and even how to understand some parts of foreign languages. Sheikh Omar was amazed by how quickly Ibrahim learned. He said the boy had a gift, a natural connection to written knowledge. Then, something unexpected happened. Al-Tahiri became very ill. His health declined rapidly, and the physicians said he would not be able to continue his work. But the manuscript was only half finished, and the Sultan expected it soon. The library officials were worried. There was no one else with the right training to complete the task. In desperation, Sheikh Omar suggested Ibrahim. At first, the other scholars refused to take the idea seriously. How could a cleaner finish the work of a master scribe? But Omar insisted, and eventually, they agreed to give the boy one chance. Ibrahim was brought into the quiet room where Al-Tahiri had been working. He was handed a fresh page and asked to copy a passage. With steady hands, he dipped the pen in ink and began to write. Everyone watched in silence. When he finished, the scholars examined the page. The handwriting was nearly identical to Al-Tahiri's. The letters were clear, the spacing perfect. But what surprised them even more was that Ibrahim understood what he had written. He explained the meaning of the passage in simple words. The library officials were shocked. The boy had taught himself what most took years to learn. With no better option, they asked him to continue Al-Tahiri's work. Ibrahim worked quietly and carefully. Day after day, he copied the remaining pages, making sure they matched the first half exactly. When the manuscript was completed, it was presented to the Sultan. The Sultan read through the pages and asked who had completed it. When he was told it was Ibrahim, a young cleaner boy from the library, he was astonished. He called for Ibrahim to be brought to him. When they met, the Sultan asked him how he had learned so much. Ibrahim simply replied that he had listened, practiced, and never gave up. The Sultan was impressed by his dedication and humility. As a reward, the Sultan offered Ibrahim the robes of a scholar and a permanent place in the House of Wisdom. Ibrahim accepted, but he made one request. He asked that he still be allowed to help with cleaning tasks. When asked why, he said it reminded him of his beginnings and helped him stay humble. Years passed. Ibrahim became one of the most respected scholars in Samarkand. He translated books, wrote new works, and taught many students. People came from distant lands to learn from him, but he never forgot where he came from. In every book he wrote or copied, Ibrahim left one blank page at the end. When others asked why, he always gave the same answer. The blank page was for the next reader, the next thinker, the next dreamer. It was a space left open for future knowledge. Over time, Ibrahim's story became well known. Children learned about him in school, and adults spoke of him as a symbol of how far dedication and love for learning can take someone. He had started as a poor orphan who cleaned floors, and he became a guardian of knowledge whose work would live on for generations. His example reminded people that true wisdom was not just about books and writing, it was also about humility, effort, and the belief that anyone, no matter how small or forgotten, could rise through learning and determination. Ibrahim's name was eventually carved into the walls of the House of Wisdom, not as a servant, but as a scholar. His blank pages became a tradition among scribes across many lands. And so, from the quiet city of Samarkand, the story of a boy who loved books spread far and wide, simple, inspiring, and true.